Welcome to Keiser Voices, the story of success, brought to you by Keiser University Graduate School, here where the academic world meets personal triumph. Join us today as we dive into the captivating tales of success.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Keiser Voices. With today's episode, we're talking about a pretty serious topic, so some listeners might find this conversation triggering, upsetting, concerning. So please, before you continue listening, check out the description below because we are talking today about intimate partner violence and domestic violence as we wrap up the month of October. And joining us are three special guests from our Women's Health Nurse Practitioner Program, three of our wonderful students. So joining us is Kayla, Cynthia, and Dion. Thank you guys for joining us and providing some insight today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to be here.
So before we get started about this, very serious conversation, and the information you guys are sharing is, very important to be shared. But can you tell us where you're at in your programs? And we'll start with Kayla.
Sure. So we are nearing the end of the WHNP tract, which is really exciting. Even though it's very exciting, there is a lot of work to be done. So a lot of us are definitely feeling the pressure of studying, reading, clinical, of trying to absorb it all, so that, hopefully the next, I think we got like 5 months left, we'll actually be boarded and working as nurse practitioners.
It's amazing. Dion, do you want to add anything on about where you guys are at your program?
For me, it's really just a countdown to Christmas, really getting through these last 8 weeks of clinicals and then, really diving in and preparing, like Kayla says, for boards and for certification.
Cynthia, what's the countdown for graduation look like for you?
Well, I'm hoping for March.
We're getting there. We're getting there. So one of your classroom assignments was to put together some informational pamphlets on intimate partner violence and domestic violence. The whole class had to do it, and the whole class did a fantastic job. We got to see all of them, but you three, the presentation, the pamphlets that you guys put out really stood out in the nurse practitioner department. And so with that, with it being National Domestic Violence Month, we really kind of want to not only provide a copy of the pamphlets that you guys prepared, but talk about it. So Dion, can you tell us what intimate partner violence and domestic violence is? I think we should start off by defining that.
Okay. So, a lot of the times in practice, we may use these two terms interchangeably, but really they are different. So intimate partner violence specifically refers to violence in a romantic relationship, specifically either with a current partner or an ex-partner, whereas domestic violence could center around anyone in the family. So maybe siblings, parents, and child, violence against each other in the household, essentially.
Cynthia, why is awareness important when we talk about, and I'm going to shorten it just for pronunciation purposes, talking about IPV and talking about DV, why is that important?
Well, it is important because, first of all, there is 4.8 million cases reported on the United States. Also, 41% of women and 26% of men suffer from violence in the United States, and that's only the ones reported. So there is so much more that is not reported because we don't make enough awareness of this issue. And also we sometimes focus on women, but also men go through these situations, and the stigma of society don't let them go through with it and report it. So that's why it's important.
No, and you made a very good point, and I'm glad you said it because I was going to ask it if you had it. Men are very underreported because, like you said, the stigma.
Yeah.
And so really, even with women can be afraid to report as well, or unfortunately think it's normal. And that's really where it's important that healthcare providers, are that supporting a person or that person you can talk to. But Kayla, I know you're working as a nurse currently. I know you all are, and you're working to advancing your licensures. But what role do the healthcare workers provide in supporting survivors or even victims who are still in a situation?
Mm-hmm. Working in healthcare, whether you're a provider or a nurse, even techs, anybody who comes into direct contact with a patient and gets an opportunity to talk or speak with a patient, you could end up playing a vital part in helping that person if this is something that they're experiencing. Screening and early identification are really important, and knowing the proper things to look out for. It can affect anybody. We talked about how it can affect men, not just women, anybody of any age. It could be a child, an adult, a senior. And then, you want to create an environment where it feels safe without judgment, and also providing some affirmation. Let the patient know that, you're here for them and you believe what they're telling you. That way you can open up the space for them to be able to talk to you. That healthcare worker might be the only person that patient has an opportunity to seek out help. And so that can, be overwhelming as a healthcare provider or a nurse, but it's true. And it could be anybody on the other side. So just being open, being non-judgmental, making sure they know that this is a safe space to share what they need to share, and then ultimately utilizing whatever resources that you have in the environment that you're working in to help them.
Dion, what about before we get to the healthcare provider? How can education help prevent IPV and DP and even support healthy relationships?
So like you said, before you get to the healthcare part of it, right, it's very important to start with educating. So you want to make sure that this is starting early because as we know, intimate partner violence or even domestic violence doesn't just affect adults, but it can affect children. And there are some statistics that says 1 in 12 high school students start to experience dating violence, right? So that's something that truly goes unreported. So you want to ensure that your children know what are healthy relationships, what situations are normal, what the expectations are and what they should be, how to respect their bodies and what to do if someone is not doing that. Finding safe spaces, letting them know who are your safe people that you can talk to regarding these things, and just helping people to realize that this is more common than we think it is, right? So you are never alone and you're not alone, and it's okay to discuss these things. So educating from a child and also, on a larger scale on the community level. So having community engagement, promotion, lots of community organization awareness so that people know, right, that these things are happening around us. And just like Cynthia said, it takes away the stigma associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia, when we talk about the communities and organizations like Dion mentioned, how can they help raise awareness?
So we can participate in March promoting, get the word through the social media, very, very purple like we are today doing this podcast. There is a lot of campaign and public education and community partnership. We can partnership with them, be as a healthcare providers, we can be advocates ourselves. Continue with the education too. Know where we can find the resources for our patients, and give the right resources to them. I also wanted to mention, sometimes the healthcare providers can be a little like judgmental or dismissive. That's the problem today with getting our patients to trust us and think they are not in a safe place. They don't have the opportunity to talk to us. So that will be our mainly focus, like get the word out there. You have providers that are gonna take care of you, that are here for helping you.
Those are great points, Cynthia, that you have. And I think even knowing what resources and tools are available will probably be the most important. So I'm very familiar with a local organization down here in South Florida. I've done a little bit of work with them. One of our undergraduate faculty members is on their board, and that is Women in Distress. They do a lot of different community things. They have a shelter. They do a clothing drive. They do galas and information session just to keep that conversation going. But Kayla, how can we find those resources or those tools that are available for people who either want to learn more about it or even get involved?
You got to do some digging and some research on the area that you live in and that you work in. Depending on where you work, some of those tools might be provided for you to be able to help your patients, such as hospitals usually have social workers, caseworkers present. But depending on if you're in a small clinic or with a large or small organization, you might have to seek out some of those resources on your own. So that's going to be seeking out the shelters in your area that could possibly take somebody who is a victim of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, using resources like the CDC, looking at the Salvation Army is a big one, who they provide a lot of shelters. They have free therapists and that help these victims either plan for the future for how they're going to cover things financially and to keep a safe space away from whoever the perpetrator was. Other things like preventipv.org has a whole bunch of toolkits on their website, healthcare advocacy resources. The National Health Resource Center on Domestic Violence has lots of training and screening guides and enrollment support. Look at your community health centers and see what toolkits that they have. There's also the hotline. So the National Domestic Hotline is 1-800-799-SAFE. And they usually are connected with local advocacy centers that can provide additional support.
That's amazing. All those resources that you've shared with us. So we appreciate that. But ladies, before we let you go, what advice would you give to someone who wants to support their friends or family or colleagues and they're affected by intimate partner violence or domestic violence in a safe and respectful way? Because that's not an easy conversation to bring up. So what would your advice be for those listening in?
I think for me, if it was anybody I know or even somebody I don't know, is one, it's not their fault. And I think that's really important to tell somebody it's not your fault that this happened, and to be there without judgment. And like be there consciously without judgment, because it's really easy to say things that we think are supportive and really it's still judgmental. So being very aware is important.
I will add to that, yeah, like she said, be no judgmental and be patient. There is a lot of emotional and mental conditioning in these victims. So they don't really understand that they can get out of that relationship. They maybe think there is no gonna be an end to this, so I don't have help, I don't have resources. So be just patient, don't give up on them. Just make sure to look for resources for them, so the day they decide to make that decision, you can be there for them and be safe.
Dion?
More or less all the same things that have been said previously. So important for us to listen and believe, right? Because that's one of the main things. People always say, well, I'm not sure anybody's going to believe me, right? I mean, I think it's better for us to err on the side of caution than to tell our friends or family or whoever we may come in contact with that you're lying, so make sure that you're affirming them and letting them know that you're here and you're listening. And also, like Cynthia said, a lot of these situations are difficult to leave, right? So for us, we might say, oh, just get up and leave. It's easier to be on the outside looking in. And so being very patient, ensuring that, again, not casting judgment, but being there and being present in whatever capacity that person might need you to be there in. And if you are unable to do that, ensuring that they have the resources to be able to feel safe, right? So providing them with all the information that they need, encouraging them to have a safe plan of exit, because we know a lot of the abuse and a lot of death from either domestic violence or intimate partner violence happens when that person attempts to leave.
Mhm.
And so, that's it. And also being that person listening, you also want to ensure that you're caring for yourself, because that can be taxing, experiencing that or being witness to those situations. So you want to ensure that you are also handling that in a healthy way so that you can be present for that person as well.
That's an important part too. You want to make sure that if you're trying to help, that you're staying safe and healthy. I mean,
Yeah.
I know somebody who was in this kind of a situation, and she literally had to flee overnight when the other half was working. And so a mutual friend of ours was, if you picked her up, and they kept that communication very under wraps. So that way nothing would become of the friend that drove to pick her up. And she could only take with her what she could grab in like an hour or two, because they just had to get out of there and get as far away from the situation, as fast as they could. So I appreciate you ladies having this conversation and sharing this. But my final question for the three of you is, this was a project for a class. This was a class assignment, and you guys went above and beyond. So did your classmates. How does projects like this, researching the IPV, the DV, putting together the pamphlets as such, how is that going to help you in the future when you go to become nurse practitioners, specifically in women's health?
I think for me, we had to make the brochure on this topic. And so one, I was appreciative it was something creative, because I felt a little more excited about it, which means the material probably stuck a little bit better to help me in the future. And then just moving forward as a future provider, when I was making the brochure and I was trying to put images on there, I was like, oh, so how do I like convey what this looks like on a brochure so people know what this topic is, who's going to pick this up? Like, what does that picture look like? And I was finding pictures of kids who were crying in a corner, or, a lady who looked very distressed or had some bruises. And then I got to thinking, and as I was reading more about the topic and trying to put this information together, not everybody looks like that. There are people that have everything together seemingly and are going home to situations like this. So I think as a provider, it's just important not to stereotype anybody or think that because that, everything seems perfect, that it's actually is that way at home. They could also be very much in danger. So I think that's what's gonna help me in the future.
Essentially, it's awareness, like we talked about. This project helped me to be more aware. Like, it's more of like a wake-up call. I mean, we learn this stuff and a lot of times we take it for granted, but doing the research and putting in the work, we realize how important our role is in this process of assessing these situations and early detection of these situations, right? So helping me to know what resources are available that I can share with my patients, but also picking up on early cues, early signs that could help to protect the patients that I serve.
Kayla mentioned it was very helpful, but because doing the project this way help the information like get stuck much better, and kind of give us an idea on what resources, what tools we can use to give to the patients. That's always some very specific, so it's much easier to find that information and give it to our clients, patients, and also to learn more about the signs that we might think we won't encounter these situations, but we will. So it's important for us to learn the most that we can, so we can help the patients.
Appreciate you guys coming on today and sharing this information to our listeners, hopefully providing some education or even just letting somebody know that they're not alone in their situation. So thank you three so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of
Yes,
course.
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And I wish you all the best. I can't wait to see the three of you walk the stage at graduation in the near future. You guys got this. And if you guys have enjoyed this episode of Keiser Voices, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow. And specifically with this topic, it's important to share this message to help those who we may not know needs this information. So definitely be sure to share this video, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for journeying with us today on Keiser Voices, the story of success. As we close this chapter, remember, every story has its next page.